Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to this episode of Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you. Sorry about that. Had a freeze there for a second. I am your host, VashSky. Thank you so much for joining us on this a slightly unusual time for this show. Hopefully, 2 hours doesn't throw you off there. But I am here in sunny California, Newport Beach. It's the perfect time to go to the beach, right in the start of December. It's absolutely fantastic. And Lou, how are you doing in your neck of the woods?
About the same. It's a little frosty here compared to where you are, but otherwise, sun shining, not a cloud in the sky, and about 40 something outside. So rather strict difference from where you are. But hey, you can get your tan from standing in the English rain.
Yes, indeed. I suppose that is true. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Juliet, good evening. Good evening to you. Very much appreciate you coming in. Leg kick. Good morning. Very much appreciate that. I like the avatar as well. A little bit of UFC action there. Very, very interesting stuff. Well, yes, we're going a little bit earlier today because, well, I'm on my way to Disneyland later today. It's about 9 a.m. over here, California time. So that should be interesting. I haven't gone back in a year, Lou. It's been a while, at least for me.
Shorter than my last journey, but what can I say? You're close.
When was the last time you made your way into the park?
Our big finale was just before we moved here, which was 2018 in May.
Wow.
So it would have been April of that year.
Yeah, that's quite a
got to do the ultimate bucket list thing that time with a dear friend who was a veteran cast member pulling a few strings, and got to drive the Mark Twain.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Oh, it's great being up there in the what is it, the pilot's house?
Pilot house, yeah.
Yes.
The wheelhouse.
The wheelhouse. You want to get that wrong. And it's an amazing view from up there because you can really see kind of the whole park and its beauty and everything like that.
Plus, especially at that time, Galaxy's Edge was still under construction. It was just after they'd reopened the river. So let's see, I probably have pictures somewhere that don't reveal me, but the view. Let's see. Anyway, it was a lot of fun, and we did our farewell visit. Yeah, those were the days. But
those were the days. And then Galaxy's Edge opened and changed the park forever. At first, pretty good. But, not long after that, 2020 happened. Oh man, that's just it's sad to think of what has happened. But it's I don't know if it's getting better. I'm not quite sure. Definitely more expensive. There are a couple of articles actually that have hit the internet. One from Caroline Reed from Ford.
There's a shot from the pilot house wheelhouse of Galaxy's Edge aborting from my point of view on that day.
I see.
Over there in Slackland.
Oh, I think you might have to press the enter button on that.
Did I not? Wait a minute. No, I did. It's there.
Really?
Huh. Oh, I put it in the wrong place.
Oh.
Hang on.
Pro's getting the message.
Here we go. Let's see. VashSky is the one I want to send it to. Yes. Hang on.
But it's...
There it is. Boom.
Oh, absolutely gorgeous. Let's go ahead and put that on screen. There you go, right there. That is Lou's vantage from the wheelhouse on the top of the Mark Twain, looking out over the backside of Rivers of America and then under construction of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Which
some very strange engines in that neck of the woods, I tell you.
Yeah, that's true. I think there was a lot of anticipation for that land. I think people were kind of under the impression, hey, Disney hasn't ruined Star Wars just yet, and it's gonna be absolutely awesome. And I think there are aspects of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge that work, but on the whole, I think it was left people wanting more, largely because of the timeline it was set. Very sad. Wasted opportunities there. At least that's
That
the way I
reminds me
look
of
at it.
so many Hollywood miscues. As you know, one of my favorite pulp, you might say, fiction series is a thing called The Destroyer, which is Remo Williams and Chun out there taking on the enemies of freedom. And there are over 150 of the books over the years, and they're translated into, I don't know, 70, 80 languages. And they are known by the collective thing, The Destroyer, which is a long story. So when Hollywood made the movie, what did they call it? Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins. Now, granted, a true fan would know, but it's like, golly, guys, you're selling a brand that's established in the whole world and you change the name? Well, that's Hollywood.
That's so strange. These naming conventions can be really something. One of my favorites was the Back to the Future and how Sid Sheinberg wanted Pluto from Mars or something. It's just some crazy name, and Steven Spielberg's like, yeah, we're not gonna do that. But Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, as one of their first productions, and so they didn't quite have the confidence to tell the head of Universal that his name sucked. But Steven Spielberg, in Spielbergian fashion, writes back, that's a great joke, very, very funny.
Yeah.
thanks for the giving us a big laugh. And Sid, he just couldn't.
It's classic how to say no without saying no. Yeah,
exactly. And that was fantastic stuff. If we look here, we can actually see what the Destroyer maybe should have been named there, at least for its film adaptation.
Yep. Dick
Tough
Schaefer and
stuff.
Warren Murphy, who wrote it all. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful stuff.
Absolutely, 100%. But yeah, that's and I know I want to get some footage. I want to get some photos for upcoming shows talking about the film influence and film's influence on Disneyland and the creation of it and the filming, like the film techniques that they used to build the park. Because you got to think, you have a bunch of people coming from the animation studio and the movie studio in order to build Disneyland initially. It wasn't just artisans and craftsmen making architecture, making buildings in the construction or architectural field only, but it was a lot of showbiz that was imbued to the creation and formation of Disneyland, which I thought was super amazing. And I know we were talking about a couple of things, like for example,
with all due respect to the Magic Kingdom, you don't get the same kind of painting from Hollywood set painters who did Disneyland as you do from Florida tract house painters.
I agree.
You just don't.
Yeah.
Just
and
world.
It's funny because I remember there's a story from Tony Baxter and how he was called to do paintings and so forth for the creation of Magic Kingdom back in 1971-72, that era. It was one of his first jobs. And, well, it's Tony Baxter at the start of his career. It's not quite the artisans and craftsmen who had been in the business for 10 to 20 years before they actually ended up working on Disneyland. So I think you're right, Lou. I think there's a lost influence there. Which is
certain techniques get translated. For example, little things that I learned that I didn't know when I first got in the business. Just about every time, if you see a standard sort of linoleum floor in a kitchen or something in a set, the basic 3 different colors of dots against a cream background. You all remember that old linoleum stuff. How did they do that? They didn't put down linoleum. The floor was all masonite. You painted the base color, and then you took the 3 complementary colors you were going to do the speckling with, and you literally got a wet paintbrush and brush and flicked it, and wherever it landed, and then you let it dry, and boom, you had linoleum. Wasn't the real thing, but an amazing simulation, as they say in linoleum mania.
I didn't know, but some of those kind of techniques that you would use for a set or something, or to make something look camera ready, let's say, you could obviously imbue some of those at least to the creation of your happiest place on earth, let's say. But I thought what was kind of interesting as well was, Walt would look at construction progress, and he would look at the cost and be like, "This is a lot of money. Why is it taking so long, and why is it costing so much for what we are getting?" And he had to be told, "Look, Walt, these aren't film sets. These have to have plumbing. These have to have back end infrastructure that you have to include in order for your guests to be air conditioned or to be comfortable within these facades and so forth. You're not creating a backlot." So what may have worked in film doesn't quite work in a theme park, obviously.
Well, it's like I've always told people, when the fire happened at Universal and took down a lot of the famous backlot streets, they were rebuilt, and some changes were made in the facades compared to the originals. But all of them were built on the exact same pattern. Of course, that's the silent picture of Universal before they ever made movies.
Right.
But I think that's the beginnings of the Court of Miracles there in the middle.
I think you're right.
But the point is, they had to follow the same patterns because the underground stuff was what was expensive to replace and change, which was the water, the gas, the power. So they followed the same street bends and turns, even if they changed what was on top, because to do that other stuff got expensive.
Yeah, if your tie-ins light up, why not?
Yep.
And which is pretty astounding. Yeah, a lot of these facades, if this is the Court of Miracles, which I think you're right. I think it's the start of it. A lot of these facades were lost during that fire, and they've replicated many of them, and now you can't even tell. I think even the tour guides will tell you, "Yeah, this is the Court of Miracles, same one used in all these other pictures." And it's like, yeah, technically that is the spot, but not the facades. But it's just kind of it's fascinating to look at this, and you can see even in this shot right here, if Walt Disney were to have ever seen that, you can see how he might be inspired to build out these facades and fronts and so forth for a theme park himself, which it's highly speculated that he did. So fascinating stuff. We do have a question, looks like, coming in right here from Leg Kick 1. "Hi Lou, did you ever eat at a place called Bob Burns? There was one in North Hollywood my dad would go to, and he got to know the cast of Hee Haw there." Please. Lou? Lou? Hello? Lou? Looks like we might have lost Lou for just a second here.
Sorry about that. I had the mute on because I was munching my lunch. Shame on me. But
You're fine.
Well, I've never been to one in North Hollywood. I don't remember there being one there, frankly. But there was one in Santa Monica that was the original that lasted a long time. And no E, just B-U-R-N-S and no apostrophe. It was Robbie Burns, the Scottish hero that it was named after. And it was a basic sort of, big drinks and prime rib and that sort of thing kind of place. And they were very good. So, yes, I ate at the Santa Monica one many times.
Ooh. Santa Monica one. Let's see, is this what we're looking at right here?
That's the one in Santa Monica, yes.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
How interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of famous restaurants and hangout spots that these stars and obviously their associated casts would stay at. Interestingly, I know you just sent me a photo of some cast. There you go.
Yeah. That's the Warner Brothers Western Street, as it was in its glory. And in the back there, where you see those trees, is eventually where they built the Walton's farmhouse and a shorter scale copy of the Fantasy Island Queen Anne mansion that originally is out at the Arboretum in Arcadia, not far from Santa Anita racetrack. But they built one here because they got tired of driving all the way out there for those opening scenes. So, but that just shows you the number of people involved in one TV show,
which is unbelievably impressive. And now, obviously, these the casts associated with productions like this have obviously grown from this era. But I'm surprised that so many people were attached to something like this, and it kind of tells you the institution that westerns, especially TV westerns in the 1950s and 60s, were at that time.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, one of the great stops on the tour at Universal in Hollywood is, or North Hollywood, whatever, Universal City, covers a multitude of sins, is a thing called I always forget whether it's 5 points or 6 points, but it was 5 Western streets, 5 or 6, that all came together in the middle. And each street had a livery stable, a hotel, a sheriff or marshal's office, and a saloon. And the idea being that, especially in the silent days, you could literally say, well, I'm heading for Tombstone, and ride out on one street, come around the corner and ride back in on the other. They didn't have to move the camera, just angle it a different way. So you had lots of opportunities, different ways, different places. They all look the same, but they all look different. What do we see?
Which is...
well, that's part of the European street with the Apotheca. But...
yeah, six Points, Texas was the name there, and I know a lot of the filming for most recently, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, was actually done.
Yeah,
within and around here, which is pretty great stuff.
Well, and we don't waste anything. For example, just beyond there, right along this fake lake, is a big riverboat. Well, that was built for the musical film of with the riverboat, Oklahoma, not Oklahoma. What am I saying? But you know the one I mean. But then they said, well, let's make a TV series called Riverboat, and they had Burt Lancaster and who else was in that? Darren McGavin. And apparently Darren McGavin was the star, and he and Burt Reynolds got into a little bit of a beef, and he got Burt Reynolds fired by saying he couldn't act. So there you go. They actually got in a fist fight, I think, at one point.
Really?
He goes or I go, and he had the better deal. So
wow. That's interesting how you make a show to take advantage of an asset, and then the assets on the show are or why this thing.
No, one thing about sets, they don't have personalities necessarily, and people, well, you just can't trust them. What can I say?
That's right.
Showboat, that's it. Jan Monroe. I'm sorry, I don't know why my brain decided to fart right at that moment, but it did. So there you go. Showboat, classic musical. I can hum the songs. I just couldn't think of the name for a second. It's funny how your brain works on Sunday afternoons in scenic Hollywood land. There we go.
Absolutely. Oh man, I'll tell you what. Sunday, Saturday, not a great time to travel. That's
this
for
weekend.
Sure.
That's for sure. I saw a picture a friend of mine took being stuck on the Grapevine coming down from Northern California for hours. And before that, they had stopped at Harris Ranch, which, for those who don't know, Harris Ranch is a pretty well-known beef supplier in Central California, but they have a great restaurant and store and hotel that is about halfway between LA and San Francisco Bay. And it is a often stopped at spot for people making that transition. In fact, I'm told that often there are family reunions where some of them live in the Bay Area and some of them live in LA, and they pick that place to have their meeting because it's halfway for everybody. And she was showing me the people at the Tesla chargers, which was a 45-minute charge plus however many hours of wait just to get to it. And yeah, sure. That's a swell way to spend your Sunday.
Yeah, we were. It was tough. It was tough, guys. Let me see if I can pull up something here for you. But we were on the 10 coming into California near the Morongo casino there.
Oh, yes.
And it was just backed up so long. It took us like
well, because at that point you're getting everybody who spent the weekend in Palm Springs too.
That's true.
So it adds a big bunch of people to the flow.
Oh, it's terrible. It was so bad. It was,
I remember when my wonderful wife came out there to live with me for the first time, and was driving a big U-Haul truck with her car and the thing behind. And she calls me at one point and says, "Am I close?" I said, "Where are you?" She says, "Someplace called Rialto." And I said, "Yeah, you're a couple hours away probably from me in Valencia." And 2 hours? Are you crazy? This is insane. But she literally cried at the idea. But yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah. This was traffic over in the LA area. So.
Yeah. Well, you build them, they will come.
I guess so. It was tough sledding for sure, and that's partially why we're doing the show right now. Actually, is because we came in so late and
let me tell him the truth, and you could have told it to me from the beginning when you proposed this. He didn't want to sit in that hotel room for another 2 hours waiting for all of you. He wants to go ahead and get to Disneyland, and I don't blame him. Do you?
Well, that's
you never have to apologize for that, Vash.
Fine. Yes. We are greatly anticipating going to the park, and actually, we got a virtual queue for China's by Adventure. So for the first time, I'm going to be able to ride that.
You'll be able to virtually watch it break. I guess. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe God will shine upon you or whatever. But yeah.
We'll have to see.
We do have traffic here sometimes, only because we are an intersection of two pretty busy interstates, and when they back up, they back up. But there's always ways around it. It's a very strange thing, I got to tell you, folks. Having been born and lived and grown up all my life in a town on an ocean, to be now in a town on a river. It used to be you'd hear coyotes, and you'd hear maybe, if you were close to the coast, the sound of a freighter's horn, but you didn't hear barges and trains as much. So everything's a little different. But that's the whole reason this town is here, is because somebody created a ferry crossing, and the whole world came to this spot to get across the river. So
there you go. I love the history of the area that you're at. It's absolutely fascinating stuff.
Well, what I think is funny, for those who don't know, I'm now in the wonderful Chattanooga, Tennessee, and one of the more famous Civil War things here is a thing called Missionary Ridge, and the Confederates were up on top and in control, and the Union was at the bottom and not. And so they ordered a charge, and they told the guys charging, get to the base of the hill and hold it. They got that far, and they were being shot down on by the Confederates. They said, screw this, let's go ahead and take it. And without orders, they went up to the top and routed them. So, these things happen sometimes in war. Anyway.
Yes, it is Robert Barnes' hometown, and one of the reasons why I was very much anticipating actually visiting it. So Very, very cool stuff indeed. It's and you can I don't want to say feel the effects of its Civil War heritage, but
You can.
right? You
That's
can
true
definitely
through most of the South, but especially places where the big battles happened that made a
right.
difference. Let's remember that because the Union took this town, this was the place that Sherman's famous March to the Sea began. That went through and burned Atlanta and all the rest of that stuff and wound up in Savannah. So, that's kind of an important thing. But it also is famous, of course, for the choo-choo. The song, the Chattanooga Choo-Choo. And by the way, if you want to go see something funny, folks, go on YouTube, or you're on YouTube now, but go on YouTube and go search for Chattanooga Choo-Choo and Carmen Miranda. And if you know who Carmen Miranda was, the lady with the Tutti Frutti hat, who was the Brazilian bombshell of the 1940s, she actually recorded Chattanooga Choo-Choo in Portuguese. And she's a choo-choo-choo-choo-choo, with her own little style. And that's kind of fun to watch. But now you know the rest of the story. Speaking of things on the internet, maybe it's time for our Jukebox Jamboree of the day. As you may know, for the last couple of weeks and from here on, I am picking a movie score I particularly love to share with you, because one of the great frustrations of our work on these channels is that we can't play music that has some sort of rights issues. But I can aim you at a link to somebody who somehow has beaten that game. And so we are doing that. And today, it is a song that I guarantee you have heard this theme song. Because when I was a kid, not even knowing the movie at all, one of the local channels in LA that did a weekly Western always used this theme as their bumper theme song for their shows. So I knew the song long before I knew the movie, and it's a great, great movie. If you haven't seen this movie, then shame on you. You should watch it. So the movie is The Big Country with Gregory Peck and Burl Ives as the most marvelous bad guy. Oh, wow, is he wonderful. And William Wyler directed it, and Chuck Heston is in it, and a lot of good people. But it's about the big country, and the music is by Jerome Moross, who did a few other movies of note, but not that many that were famous. But boy, this one alone is enough to cement him in the history of fantastic movie scores. Burl Ives, always a snowman to me. I don't know. Oh, well, okay. But in this, he's one of the two warring ranchers, and man, does he know how to crank up the intensity to make everybody basically play off of him. It's a pretty great movie. You should watch it. Not short. Put aside the time, watch the movie. But meanwhile, you can listen to the music at this link.
The music is astounding. It's like really, really great. And yeah, I was like, wow, this is absolutely familiar. But I obviously didn't connect it to the film. And now when you say, oh yeah, they use this score in a bunch of other Western, film and television.
It's kind of on the basic Western soundtrack list, so to speak, if anybody's doing something Western, whether it's a pre-show music for a stunt show or whatever it happens to be.
Right.
And yes, you're right, Jan Monroe. It's Have a Holly Jolly Christmas with Burl Ives in the big country, if you like.
Yeah. That's man, that's great stuff. That is fantastic. Absolutely.
Gene Simmons is so wonderful too, and Carol Baker, Chuck Heston, Burl Ives. There's everybody up there. And
movies,
big country.
So
it's
good.
Big country. And this movie, the music says it.
It's a fantastic score, rousing score. I was like, ooh.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely gave me a little pep in my step here this morning.
Well, Well, that's
better
why I
than
chose it. I figured you had gone west and you needed something, perky. Uh,
yeah, indeed. Oh man, that's some fantastic stuff. Definitely check this one out. Link is going to be in the chat right there, and it's also in the description of this video that you're watching. So if you're watching it on a replay, well, it's right down there, and you can listen to the score from the Big Country. Great stuff. Highly recommend. Definitely a fantastic pick in LEW'S Backlot Jukebox. So there you go. Fantastic stuff. I believe, let's see here, what was posted on the channel recently. Speaking of Westerns, and well, actually, it has to do with the South as well. Here we go. The Undefeated.
oh yeah.
Really,
one
good
of our
stuff.
genre guy classics, and no agony, no defeat, as in the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. No way for these guys. This is called The South and the North Gang Up on the Mexicans and the French. By golly, that's an all-American movie.
Yeah. Well,
But
it took me by surprise
it's a
because
fun movie.
it opens, and you got the Union fighting the South there, and it's like, okay, well, I guess this is how this movie is going to be, and it starts out in typical Civil War fashion, but then
With what Disney star?
ooh, yes, Royal Dano.
Yes. The
I-
voice of Abraham Lincoln playing a Southerner. How's that for confusion?
Which
Anyway.
was wild. I watched this movie, and got John Wayne there. Okay, all right, got the boys there. Okay, and then this Southerner walks up, has a conversation. Obviously, you have to watch the movie, and I'm like, "That's Royal Dano." I looked it up. Sure it was. That was pretty great stuff. Fantastic.
Great movie. Great.
Oh,
Great
so good.
music too, by the way.
Yes, that is true. Absolutely fantastic stuff, folks. You got to check this one out. Had a lot of fun with it. Had a lot of fun making it and listening to the guys. You're really gonna get a kick out of this one. Episode 32 of the genre guys there, and it's just some great stuff. A very interesting production as well. Interesting things happen, and I believe was that filmed in Panavision? Is that right? Panavision
yeah.
70.
Must have been.
So good.
Oh, and if you want to double your jukeboxing, let's see.
Mhm.
Here's the soundtrack of the theme song of that.
Ooh.
Like over there on our side chat, I put it. Instead of
Yep.
the other place.
Let's go ahead.
See, I can hum them. I just can't. But Hugo Montenegro, who you might know from his brief dalliance with NFL ownership. But anyway.
That's going to be in the chat as well. Yeah.
But that's the latest. And just for those, there may be people here who aren't familiar with the routine. Let me explain it. We have this show, Hangry Tables and Lauren Connor and I, called The Genre Guys. And every week we take a movie and do a deep dive on it. A movie that one of us has called to the other's attention at the very least, or that we all love or whatever. And that goes on as a perk for members of the Pro Show, the Pro Channel. Free, but you have to be a member to see it. But 3 months later, it shows up here for all. And so you can see there, episode 32, but we've got 3 months more. So another, 12 more. So it's probably 45 or 50 that we're at now total. We're actually recording tonight. Normally we do it Saturday, but Saturday got busy, so here we are tonight. And tonight we're doing a wonderful John Wayne movie called Brannigan, about John Wayne as a Chicago cop who goes over to London in pursuit of an absconding felon, played by the great bad guy John Vernon, and his slimy lawyer, played by Mel Ferrer. and his English Scotland Yard counterpart, played by Richard Attenborough. Welcome to Jurassic Park. And Judy Geeson is the girl cop who assists him. So we're doing that, and we're putting one in the can as a sort of super holdout. The idea being that if one of us is not available, as has happened in the past, we have one to play because we don't want to let the audience down. And that one, yeah, Lauren Connor and the two of us talking about the original Star Wars, Episode 4, A New Hope, as it was later dubbed. But our point of view is we're going to look at it tonight as it was originally, a single movie, not a franchise, not something that was a part of a larger story. It was just a movie. But oh, what a movie it was. And so those will be out there in the library of stuff. And there you go.
Man, whenever you guys cover John Wayne, I'm always I get very excited. But
well, we have one of my favorite of all his movies waiting in the lineup pretty soon, and that is In Harm's Way, with John Wayne and Kirk Douglas, and it takes place starting with Pearl Harbor, and that's why we're going to do it on the 7th of December, which is next week, I think. Yeah. Anyway, we will be doing that one shortly, and that's an enormous, wonderful movie. Yeah. If you haven't seen In Harm's Way, directed by Otto Preminger of all people, but it's just a very fine film. And John Wayne doing Dirty Harry? No. You know why? Dirty Harry never smiles. Wayne has a lot of fun in this movie.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and John Wayne, he comes off as Duke. You would think that he would have an affect like a Clint Eastwood maybe, but he does have a lot of fun. That's the thing. He smiles a lot, and you can tell he has a good time whenever he's working on. But I mean, at least in the productions I've seen.
To work if he's not having a good time. Let's put it that way.
That's true.
So anyway, let's see, and so that's the genre, guys, folks. That's what it's all about, and you'll see them all eventually here. But of course, we would love to have you see them sooner and later. I find people who watch our shows twice, who haven't seen the movie and in between watch the movie, have really interesting comments to make here. Because I'd never heard of this, and I saw your thing and thought, well, I'll give it a try. And then they find that it's something that becomes one of their favorites. And of course, our theme song, folks, our absolutely siren call is Buy the Damn Disc. So you've got it, so that if the world decides to censor things or put trigger warnings or God knows what else, you'll have the actual movie to enjoy over the years and with your family and with your grandkids and like that. So, enough said.
This is one of my favorite stories here. Let me see if I can pull it up. Do you agree, by the way, with this assessment? Great movies, some stinkers?
Well, sure. There are always some stinkers. Into every life of fragrance, a stinker occasionally happens.
Okay, let me see if I can bring this up right here. This is the Daily Beast, so it's real, but no, it is actually a real thing right here. Wicked movie slapped with green skin, trigger warning in the UK.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It's one of my favorites.
Look, I haven't seen Wicked. I have no particular intention to see Wicked. I've never seen the Broadway show that's been running for 20 years in one place or another. But I do know this from what I've seen. The idea to split it into two movies is going to turn out to be a seriously bad idea financially.
Yeah, apparently.
I don't think there's going to be enough to make people a year from now say, oh, God, that again?
I guess the combined promotional budget for this, if we count in tie-ins and so forth from third parties, I think it's like $500 million. That's crazy. I don't know if you caught that story. It's just They're putting all the eggs in this basket.
I just know based on what I've seen, their hopes of getting mom and dad to take the theater kids to the movie are failing. And if you take however many parties go to see that movie over the time it runs, and take a reduction by 1 to 2 or 3 instead of 3 or 4, that adds up, guys. That adds up.
It does. Indeed. Anti-green skin rhetoric in Wicked has earned the movie a trigger warning for, quote, discrimination by the British Board of Film. Yeah, exactly. Film classification. According to the regulator, seeing, quote, beloved characters being mistreated could be, quote, upsetting and poignant for some audiences.
Poignant? You mean we're warning you about poignant movies, huh?
Yes, exactly.
Well, that removes a whole bunch of them from the list, gang, if they're any good. But
I mean, your character has to go through struggle in order to grow and and be somewhat, I don't know, to resonate.
Let me ask you this question: if you didn't have the trigger warning, and somebody went to the movie and found that they were offended by a green prejudice, would anybody give a damn if they came out and complained? Wouldn't they be told, show me where the green-skinned girl hurt you, and sent them off for their therapy?
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely wild. It's crazy to think that we are in this place in which we are giving not just trigger warnings for fictionalized characters, but fictional circumstances attached to those characters as well. We had to protect people from those. It's like wild. That's just a wild thing to me. Alphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West, played by British actress and singer Cynthia Erivo, experiences a troubled childhood as a result of being bullied for her green skin. The bullying experienced by Alphaba for her green complexion, quote, leads to some emotional and upsetting scenes until she is finally accepted, the BBFC said. Regulators also cited a disabled woman in a wheelchair being, quote, treated in a condescending manner by able-bodied people, persecuted in a fantastical society. Earning it the PG rating, I suppose.
Well, if you're in a wheelchair, God bless you, and you are brought up in a way that you don't have to see anybody being prejudiced against you for that or have any comments that are negative because of that. And then you get out in the real world and find out, oops, they do. Are you better or worse prepared for having been sheltered from it? I mean, shouldn't you be brought up honestly and be told, yeah, some people are jerks and they may say something, and so what? And get a little bit of a tough carapace around you over that sort of thing. That's just me talking. What do I know?
Well, you happen to, be in the business, but productions that created some great entertainment for us to enjoy for years and years and years. So I think you know quite a bit there. But it's just wild how insulated people are, or at least trigger warned in this manner. It's like, look, can't people just walk into a story and be whisked away and not have a emotional breakdown while doing it?
The people, of course, who want to impose such things, I don't think they're triggered. I think they just want to be the ones who warned you. They're looking for a virtue signal, pure and simple. But here we go getting political again, and we don't want to do that, really. We just want to talk about movies.
We do.
So if anybody out there has any questions about how the movies really work, well, you're going to get them answered and then something on here, but that's kind of what we're here to do. So
please do. Please, we love answering your questions. Go ahead and provide them in the chat. If you have bigger questions, if you have resources that you want to throw in, all of that, you can go ahead and email us.
I just saw Jan Monroe in the chat said we pamper people so much they can't handle the fact that 100 years ago life was different. That's because we don't educate them as to history. Our education system is pretty lousy about once upon a time, this is how it was. And it wasn't because it was good or bad or people were evil. It was just because that's the way it was. And we've grown. if everybody out there is supposed to believe, well, we're human beings and therefore we're perfect from day one, there's no need for history. There's no need for art. There's no need for anybody. Well, Ken, why do actors take neck points when they know how Hollywood accounting works? Why do their agents suck so much? Well, don't forget, the agents get a percentage of what they get, whether it's points or whatever. The action is that everybody thinks they're smarter than the other guy. So
That's true.
you say, well, I know everybody else who ever took this deal got screwed, but I put these 3 words in it that make it different. Yeah, good luck.
Well, I mean, some people, I suppose, when they hear Jack Nicholson's story, for example, over Batman, it's like, well, he got on the ground floor or something real big, made a lot of money doing it. I want a deal like that, especially for a production that I think will have tremendous value at the box office. A lot of times that doesn't work out.
Yeah, but he was already a star, and he brought star quality to that movie that nobody else in it had.
Absolutely. Yep.
So there you go. Don't get me started. Agents, actors, gross, net.
There you go.
I think that the famous definition of that whole thing was when I don't know how many people know that the movie Coming to America was based on a story by Art Buchwald, political humorist. And when he felt he didn't get paid what he was supposed to, he sued everybody. And when they were talking about gross points, net points, all these different things he was supposed to get, they actually had Eddie Murphy testify. And he said, well, what those of us who know better call those kind of points are monkey points. In other words, if you're a damn fool and signed to get those, you get nothing. And, Well, Jan, wait, that's a book I should have told people about a long time ago. Let me look it up. There is a book. I don't know how many of you ever read or saw the Flashman stories. Let's see. Here's a book for you. George MacDonald Fraser, who was a wonderful, wonderful fiction writer, also wrote a book. I'll just send you to the wiki page and you can pull what you want, okay? Let's see. It's called The Hollywood History of the World. And what he decided to do was look into the history of the world as told by Hollywood. He separated it into ages. The ancient world, films like Cleopatra, Ben-Hur, The Robe, etc. Knights and barbarians, all that you can figure. Tudors and sea dogs, Seahawk, Private Life of Henry VIII. Romance and royalties, Scaramouche and Waterloo. Rule Britannia, The Lives of a Bengal Lancer, Four Feathers, Northwest Frontier. New World, Old West, Western Union, True Grit, My Darling. And The Violent Century, All Quiet on the Western Front, etc. And he went into, here's the Hollywood actor playing whoever, and here's the real guy. And surprised, they look a lot alike. And he was pleasantly surprised with the fact that most of these movies actually got it pretty close to right. Although some of the stories in it are pretty funny. I think I've told this one before, but it's really great. He talks about, I think it's Jeff Chandler was playing Jesus in one of these epics with Jesus. And he was a very devout Christian. And he was very upset. And he called a production meeting for the producers and the writer and everybody and the director. And he wanted to know why the scriptwriter had dared to edit, rewrite, shorten, fix the Sermon on the Mount. And the Hollywood writer smiled and said, well, I thought he sounded kind of pushy in the original. That's showbiz.
Oh, that's something. That's great stuff. That sounds like a
if you read this
book,
which is very entertaining, you will find that most of the times they got it pretty close to right. So much to everyone's surprise, including his when he wrote the book. But
wow, that's fantastic. That's awesome. That sounds like a fantastic book. So the Hollywood History of the World. Very.
And again, he does it in in chronological order of time, not of when the movies were made. So that's kind of fun too.
That is fun. I like that. Yeah, when you're softening the edges about one of the most traumatic events in human history. I mean, you know, it's fascinating Hollywood's interplay with that, right? So you do have some directors and some creatives who are like, okay, we're gonna go ahead and soften this up and create a fictional work that way, and
Well,
then you have some that
soften up like what? Like Schindler's List? Like, I mean, there's a lot of things that aren't softened up at all and are pretty close. I mean, even Saving Private Ryan, that brilliant
Yeah.
stuff at the beginning of D-Day
Yep.
was nowhere near as bad as it really was.
yeah.
Walter Tomaszewski, question for Lou. If 18, 24-year-olds don't have disposable income, where are they getting the money to attend K-pop or Tete arena concerts? Well, I guess it's the money they don't spend on other things. I don't know. I don't know where they get the money.
Debt. No, I don't know.
Well, no, but it is, Walter, in the sense that it's a zero-sum game. If you have X number of dollars, how you choose to spend them, whether it's on movies or not, or games or cassettes, or that's movie related. I mean, you have to remember that the golden age of Hollywood was the only game in town. People went to see 2 or 3 movies a week. There was radio, but that's it. There was no TV. There was no cable. There was no, So, and when you saw Casablanca or you saw whichever movie you choose, that was it, gang. You couldn't watch it again at home. You couldn't watch it again on TV. You couldn't have a copy of it. You'd seen all the chances you were going to have, as far as you knew, to see that movie. So in that sense, even the great ones became more temporal in the sense that they weren't, around forever. So.
And speaking of, actually, on that whole thing, dealing with just this same exact subject right here, we forgot to do our box office update here. Wicked crossed $350 million at the global box office after strong holds overseas with a $29 million second weekend, just a 42% drop from opening despite Moana 2. Key here, folks, for a $96.8 million international cum over 61 markets with several major
just
ones.
A 42% drop. Just.
Wow.
Wow.
I mean, that's pretty low from week to week, especially with Moana 2.
It's about week 3 and 4 and 5, It really is. As I've explained ad infinitum, and most of the people watching the show already know.
Please.
The percentage that goes to the studio is the most the first week, and the theaters start making money the 4th and 5th and 6th week. So if it never runs that long, as so many do not, they're kind of screwed. They make popcorn.
Yeah, that's true. And Luis Ferdinand also has this.
Everybody celebrates when there's a hit, but that's because they've had weeks and weeks and weeks of not hits preceding. So
that's true.
I don't know. And then they played some games with this one about including preview days of 2 or 3 or 4 days into the opening weekend, and so all I know is the statistics are always. When I was in college, way back when, actually high school, technically, I was in a program for allegedly smart high school kids at Northwestern University. And I remember getting a book in the bookstore there called How to Lie with Statistics. And they're still doing it.
They are. And it's what is the Mark Twain saying? There's liars, there's damn liars, and there's statistics or something. Lies, damn lies.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And Jan, it wasn't just a whole new batch of kids. It was kids with parents who'd seen it 7 to 10 years ago.
Yeah. The re-release of films like not just the vault that you would have for Blu-rays and DVDs, but for theaters themselves, started. What is it? The post-World War II era, right? Where these studios like Disney, for example, wanted to they obviously they have limited output due to the war and so forth, and it's like, well, let's go ahead and just re-release our old stuff, get that to theaters, and really satiate that demand there. And so that's why you have, what is it, Snow White and Seven Dwarfs, which would come out in 1937, technically wouldn't be released until 1938, at least wide, at the start of that year. And it's like, okay, well, let's go ahead and bring it out at the 1945, near the conclusion of the war, right there. And that's where you get the 7-year span, and did very, very
And
well.
it worked,
re-release.
so they kept doing it.
And they kept doing it, and that's where the 7 years came from. Super interesting, super fascinating. But it's also how the company stayed relevant and kept their cast of characters and their film library relevant as well for generations to come. It was kind of a controversial thing to stop that practice, actually.
Well, and they weren't releasing a dozen cheap direct-to-video knockoffs on their own of the same characters, too.
That's true. Yeah, that's notable as well. Man, quite a fascinating practice.
And there was not in those days the huge merch bomb that happened. I mean, there were things, there were Mickey Mouse watches and things, but not like the typical unleash the merchandise of modern so-called hits. So.
Yeah. When Disney releases Pinocchio on, I believe, VHS at that point, that was a big deal, huge deal, because that kind of upended that whole revenue stream from these re-releases. And I remember my parents talking about, we would see a Disney movie every week, practically, from these re-releases and so forth. So it was a big deal. It was definitely an institution for sure.
And they still were not selling it to you to take home.
Yes,
is the point.
That's true. Yeah, and so people felt that if they didn't go, they'd miss out entirely. Which actually, the author that we were covering last week, from your suggestion, Lou, talks about that, how she missed out on, was it Gone with the Wind, back when she was a kid, and she felt that if she didn't go to the theater, she would miss out on seeing that film forever.
Yeah. Well, there is that pressure, so.
Indeed. Well then, you've got Star Wars coming up. You have, obviously...
and again, the whole point of view, from me anyway, I haven't talked to the other guys, is this was just a movie. Yeah, it was pretending to be part of a serial, technically. But we never knew what episode it was, that it was number 4 in a serial. It was an affectionate look back at serial movies in an era when they had gone by the wayside. The serial in the old days is what a TV series became. Same characters, next episode, but without usually the kind of, it's funny how long it took to get back to cliffhanger endings between episodes. I think really the return to it was 24. And 24 was they were worried that it wouldn't sell, because if people hadn't seen the first couple episodes, they wouldn't come in. And what happened as that process became more regular is that the guilds, including the ones I'm involved with, gave them a deal. They said, you can rerun the first and second or third episode within a space of 6 weeks or 8 weeks and not have to pay full first run residuals on it. It's a way of getting a show to maybe, grab an audience. People heard about it, but they felt like they were too late for the party, but they'd show them again. So it was a whole special deal for that. So,
wow, that's a shrewd move right there.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. Oh, that's really something. To hear Lorne Connor talk about Star Wars, that's going to be absolutely fantastic. Cannot wait to get his thoughts on that. And I'm sure he's got a lot of personal stories attached to that. That'll be very, very cool. Like we said before, the newest video from the Genre Guys on this channel is going to be Undefeated. That's right, the John Wayne in 1969 classic right
and
there.
Rock
Very,
Hudson,
very cool.
And
Rock Hudson.
all the usual Wayne sidekicks. Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, was a rodeo cowboy. And he
Oh,
came out to California to work on a picture, basically by being the wrangler on the horses. And when they gave him his paycheck, he said, "Well, this is better than the rodeo. Maybe I'll stick around." One thing led to another, and he had a career in Hollywood. So, anyhow,
great stuff. And if anybody wants to go ahead and send us questions, they can do that as
yes.
well at t3ponline@yahoo.com. I have a little banner there at the bottom of our shows in order to make sure that everybody gets that. But t3ponline@yahoo.com. Very, very good stuff. Love hearing your questions and love seeing what you have to send us. So please go ahead, utilize that as much as you would like. And I think that just about wraps up our show for today. A little shorter of an episode here.
a little shorter, but you know what? There's a mouse waiting for you.
There is one. It happens to be at the happiest place on earth. Only a scant, I don't know, 20 minutes away from me right now. So got to go in there and experience the parks. Like I said, for the first time in about a year, which is interesting. A lot of changes have obviously taken place, which I will note to the best of my ability on Thursday's T3PO Live. That's going to be at 5 p.m. there at our usual time. Lou should be joining us.
I should be there, yeah. I should be. Well, I'm old, gang. I could die, so.
That's terrible. Don't say that. No,
reality is a bitch, but what can I say?
Well, I look forward to seeing you there. If you do end up making it there, and
that time
it should be a whole lot of fun.
All that sort of thing.
Absolutely, 100%. And we should be on the regular schedule next week. This was just this time slot right here. I just had to advance it just a little bit so that I can actually get out to that park. So thank you so much for joining us here on Hollywood Backlot, Lou and you. Hopefully you had a fantastic time. By the way, Backlot JUKEBOX going to be right there in the description. We'll go ahead and update it with our music from The Undefeated, which very, very cool stuff right there.
It's great.
Fantastic stuff.
Anyway, we should have a hum along sometime on one of these things. But
ooh, a hum along. If we can sync it up with StreamYard, maybe we'll do just that. But till next time, thank you so much. And if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We've got amazing content.
And all those buttons. Come on.
And the like button and all those things. Come on, help us out here. We're producing some great content for y'all. And we will see you all next time here on Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you. Take care, gang.